Hey everyone. I'm just waiting. There, okay, that should work. I know my face just looked really stupid. I'm trying to figure this out. We had some technical difficulties, but hopefully it's going to work now.
Hello,
Loading.
dear. Can you
Hey.
listen to me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I
Yeah, you
can't
cannot see me, right?
Nope.
Oh God, technology helps so much sometimes.
Maybe it's the internet connection or something.
Yeah, this
Could be.
quarantine.
We can also
Maybe I
retry.
maybe I leave and then I can enter again.
Yeah, let me. Okay, and now I'm alone again. Hey, Uncensored Witch, you finally caught alive. Aw. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to do this. Okay, let's try again.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, now it's working.
Now we are on. My God, this is amazing. Hi,
There's
Anya. How are
always
you?
there's always something. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good too. Yeah, a little bit excited. This is brand new for me. Speaking
It'll be
to my
cool.
German friend live on Instagram is a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, I'm kind of used to being live. We're used to being live, but in English and everything, it's a bit different.
Yeah, definitely. Especially that people don't know that we were speaking through Zoom before,
Yes, we warmed
so
up a
we
little
could
bit, so it's
we
not as
we
awkward.
not at all. So this is quite interesting the topic for us today. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the chaos and spirit.
Yeah,
Chaos, chaotic time, isn't it? This quarantine time. How's in Germany?
yeah, 100%. Well, it's orderly in the sense that I guess everyone is staying home, obviously, or most people are anyways. So it's kind of interesting how chaos and order mix there because you have the governments telling you to stay at home, which brings order, but at the same time, it's chaos for a lot of people, even though they are at home and should be in a safe space. But it is a chaotic time for many because being stagnant is actually strange. It's strange to people.
That makes a lot of sense considering that not only the outside situation is chaotic, but also inside could be, depending on how people deal with their own emotions. As far as I know, there are a lot of people now fighting and facing fears, their own demons and shadows. And I think that's a little bit of that's one of the topics that I would like to listen from you and discuss about today is how you deal with spirituality in the middle of this chaotic moment.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing is that I have to work less, because I have a normal office job, which I can't go to now, obviously, because the offices are closed, which means that I'm left with a lot more time than I would usually have, at the end of the day, and I work fewer hours. So actually, I feel like there's a lot of spiritual freedom coming with this because even though my physical freedom is restricted, my spiritual freedom is kind of growing because in the morning I have a lot of time. I can do workouts, I can go to the altar, just sit and, think about things, reflect about things. And also in the evening, I can do the same because I'm just free to do whatever I want to in my apartment. And not to say that I always do that. I'm not perfect, obviously. I skip days for my spiritual practice. I try to be consistent, but we all know how it is. So yeah, it's an opportunity, but at the same time, you know, you can't always use that opportunity because it is strange to always be at home. What has it been like for you with your spiritual practice?
Well, actually, the opposite of your experience, considering that I am working home office all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
computer and students online, and we have been dealing with a lot of readjustments in terms of preparing classes and adapting
Yeah,
them into this pedagogical, new platform. But whatever. Spiritually speaking, the idea would be that I don't have the time now to dedicate as much as I would like to, and I could envy you for that. Considering that if you are at home, you can do things that you normally don't do in a normal routine. My routine is all about being in the computer, reading and preparing things. And maybe before I go to bed, I can breathe a little bit. Yeah, do some exercises. But I think we are, dealing with that, coping with this brand new situation. How can you describe yourself now as this secular, person working, but also doing living on your spiritual advice, your business, being a tarot reader,
yeah. You mean how it sort of mixes or how it affects each other,
How
or
can
what do
you
you mean?
how can you mix that, and how do you deal with that? What's your routine like?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is, it's actually good that I still have a normal job in a way. Um, and there have certainly been moments where I thought, okay, making a business out of my spirituality is actually the worst decision I could make because it gives everything that you do in your practice this flavor of, oh, okay, how can I document this, commercialize it, show it to other people, share it with other people, you know? If you try new things and you want to talk to, you know, I make YouTube videos. If I want to talk on a YouTube video about it, I think about that all the time. So I think actually it's not that good to have a business that includes your spirituality. You have to have very strong boundaries. So I'm glad that as a main job, I still have my muggle job, my secular job, if you want to call it that, because it's sort of, you know, it's a little bit of a change. If I just did my spiritual business, I think my own spirituality would actually suffer from that because it would get too influenced by it and too affected by it, you know?
And maybe you would compromise your sacred space and the
Mhm.
way that you deal with your own feelings, but there are people that survive on that, and it's quite fine, yeah, considering
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they know how to cope with that. But I have a question. I would like to understand how it's your view. What's your view about the chaos? The practice of the chaos. How do you do that? Do you do that anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I do consider myself a chaos witch in many respects,
Hmm.
which I feel a lot of people do. So it means something different to everybody. And I think the important thing is just that in chaos magic, you know, it's not a practice in the sense that there's rules and there's regulations, there's rituals you can follow, but it's more of an approach to magic itself. And I think that is what really has always aligned with me because I've always been eclectic. And I feel like chaos magic goes a step further than eclecticism in a way because it acknowledges that there is this universal chaotic energy that is always surrounding us. Um, and we can really choose what to believe ourselves, what paradigms to follow, what beliefs to have. And that is really how I engage with it in so many ways. Because, for example, in my shadow work, I work a lot with shifting my belief systems and shifting the
Amazing.
paradigms that I think under and work under, obviously. And I think that is really the biggest deal for me. Um, yeah, and I think it's just a good approach to keep being curious and keep being creative with what you incorporate in your craft, what gods you work with, what goddesses you work with, what beliefs you have, and then just taking whatever resonates with you and working with that. And I know not everyone would consider that chaos magic strictly, but I think that is really what is at the core of it. That idea that we are free to do what we want and what feels powerful to us. And once you've experienced that power for yourself, I think it's evident that it's effective. And that's really why I consider myself a chaos witch, because that kind of empowerment always feels good to me. And I've, learned a lot from it, definitely.
If we consider that, that's quite nice, actually. I think you are a little bit open in this virtual era, considering your intriguing and amazing videos on your channel in the YouTube, yeah. And how can you how can you describe this collage of belief systems that you have, considering that chaotic magic, chaotic chaos, spirituality brings many different perspectives of spirituality to its core, right? Can you tell a little bit what do you select that you think, like, I don't know, practice of Buddhism, practices of Kardecist point of view, or any other
Yeah,
religion?
I mean, I'm sure that there's some logic to which systems my mind chooses. I actually never thought about that, honestly, because, different people
A
resonate
point
with
for me
different
then.
things. Yeah, point for you. Because I feel like there's probably a certain logic to it. For me, I would say I don't draw that much from religions, like as you said, Buddhism, or whether it's Islam or Christianity. I'm interested in it, but I don't draw much from it. For me, it's much more about wisdom teachings that aren't religious in that sense, that don't have institutionalized elements. For example, I work a lot with tarot, which I think many people, even people who use tarot, still think of it not so much as, yes, awesome deck.
There we go.
They, yeah, they don't think of it so much as a cohesive system, but they just think of it as like, oh, I use this to either foretell the future or, reflect about myself. But I think beyond the practice of drawing cards and, just drawing a daily card, doing a spread for yourself, there's so much you can learn if you just study the system and the many aspects that it blends together. If you just study the logic of the major arcana, the minor arcana. And I think some people don't pay enough mind to that. So that is a system that I work with very intensely. I've dabbled in the Kabbalah, definitely. Astrology is also a system I work with. And yeah, it's mostly those. Oh, and the I Ching, for example, as well. So I think it's mostly philosophical things. Oh, hey, half a switch, welcome. I just saw you, so I had to say hi.
Very
Um,
cool people coming, yeah.
yeah, the chat is so tiny, so I'm kind of missing a lot of people, but she popped right into my eye.
Amazing. I was thinking,
Yeah.
oh, cool, cool. People are reacting. That's quite nice. Quite nice. I just remember that months ago we spoke a little bit about psychological magic. How can
Mhm.
we apply psychology and shadow work, bringing from, the subconscious to conscious mind, and how to manifest and transform our daily lives through this not spiritual practices.
Mm,
You said something very interesting, and I think it's revealed in your speech now, considering that you like the systems. So you learn a system, you know the idea, and you apply according to your need. And
mm,
tarot is very practical for that. You can create your own spreads. You can give your own interpretation to the art. You can create your own cards, and you learn from your perspective a way to read for you and for other people, and
mm.
that's quite interesting. And for me, it's all about chaos, considering that chaos created the world, and chaos recreates everything all the time.
Mm,
And if we are a little bit sensitive, you know, to perceive that, we can make a lot of change. But the perception, in my opinion, considering your idea, is also a psychological process of understanding and reviewing your mind, and maybe journaling, you know, what do you
yeah.
want to change. How do you do that? How do you deal with this psychological mixture?
I want to say one thing before I answer that, which is that
Yeah.
because I had a lot of thoughts about tarot and chaos before this talk, and it made me like think about how they are related to each other, you know? And I
Okay.
feel like what I like so much about tarot is that it seems like a random system, and a lot of people work with it in a random way,
Okay.
sort of like piecing together art. But at the same time, it has this cohesion and it has this narrative, and it has cohesion in multiple ways. And I think that's a perfect representation of what chaos is, because there's not just one way to see the tarot. It's not just, okay, you have the major arcana and it's the journey, you know, 0 to 21, and it's a linear journey, but rather you can look at it, you know, at the different cards relating to each other. You can see how the 1 relates to the 10, or the 20 to the 2, or you can look at the elements, how they connect all of the cards.
The
And I think
colors.
that is, yeah, that is a very good representation of how we can also use the logic of chaos in our magic and in our everyday life, in a way that there's so many perspectives we can take on different topics. And yeah, just see the different stories and not just see one limited story that we want to focus ourselves on and focus our conscious mind on, but rather to open up to more than one linear story. And I think the tarot is a great representation of that.
I think we can see a little bit of that in the paintings of the Thoth Tarot, considering that Crowley was one of the guys that decided to create this chaotic point of view. Yeah, I may have one here. It's full
Yeah,
of energy, full of, full of movement, and full of symbols. Maybe the mixture of that represents a little bit what is chaos and how we recreate our lives daily. Yeah? Um, I have, of course, a script here. I cannot speak to you without a script, and chaotic magic talks also about sigils and servants. How do you see that? Do you work with that?
as far as servitors or servants are concerned, I don't work with those. But I do work with sigil magic, and I do it quite freely, I have to say, quite liberally and quickly sometimes, in a way where I invest focus, but I don't invest a lot of time. And then I very quickly forget that I even did a spell. Sometimes I just feel drawn to it. You know, I have a certain issue or something, and I'm like, okay, I'll do a sigil for it, and then move on with my life, activate it, and forget about it, which some people say is an important part of the process, that you don't obsess about that result. So yes, I do use that. I do use sigil magic, but not servitors at the moment.
Okay. Oh my God. A little bit of fear here. How can you apply the sigils into your psychological process? Do you do that as magical, like, oh, I'm gonna draw and something is gonna happen out of it? Or you do that consciously, and have an effort remembering the symbols and the kind of reading that you attribute to those risks.
Mm. I usually, I know some people do it in different ways. Some people like hang their sigils on the wall. Some people get them tattooed. Some people draw them on their hands. Personally, I make them and then I either burn them or I just forget about them and they are in my journal. And I activate them with a certain intention, obviously,
Okay.
and with a certain raising of energy. I always raise a bit of energy, focus on the symbol, and activate it that way. And most of the time, the thing with sigil magic is that a lot of people use it in order to get results because it is a very result based magical practice. So I have to say that I don't so often use it for psychological processes. I have
Okay.
other methods I use for that. But rather I focus more on manifesting things very concretely. I've done it for money before, and I'm trying to think what else I've done. But that's the thing with me, that I often forget what spells I did. And I think it's good that way, because that way they work best. If you don't even worry about the outcome, you don't obsess about it. That's why I don't even want to see the sigils every day. You know what I mean? If I need a reminder, for example, if I wanted to say, like, oh, I have to be more self-confident, and make a symbol for that, that would not be a sigil for me. If I then get it
Okay.
tattooed, so I'm like, oh, I want to remember to be self-confident, so I get it on my arm tattooed or something. I wouldn't do that with a sigil. I would do it with a different sort of symbol that means self-confidence, or whatever symbol to me.
Do you remember any anything that really happened after doing the sigil and journaling? And if you go back in time and you see, oh my God, 3 years ago I did that and now it's happened.
100%.
Here, maybe.
Yeah, there was a money spell that I did. Um,
You
and it
just
was
didn't put the
funny.
numbers there, right? You should have put more zeros.
Yeah. No, honestly, that's the thing though. I did not put like, oh, I want this and this much money. I said, I want to be able to pay for this thing. And in the end, what happened was that because I actually earned less money, I got support from the state to pay for that thing. So instead of getting
Whoa.
more money to pay for it, it came through a different way. And I think that's really the cool thing about magic, that if you think that you cast for the outcome, you cast for the thing you want, not for a number. You shouldn't say I want $1 million, but you should say I want to be able to afford this, and then in whatever way it comes to you, and it's usually not in the way that you expect, honestly.
But it's all about intention, isn't it?
Yeah,
Look what my friend said here. She said that chaos can be destructive and constructive at the same time. And tarot can be a powerful learning about death and life, light and shadows. Do you agree with that?
I do. Let me read again. Tarot can be a powerful learning about life and death, light and shadows. Learn how to do both sides. Yeah. And you know what I was also thinking is that I feel like the relationship between chaos and order is sort of similar to the relationship between light and shadow, or life and death, or yin and yang. And I really that came to my mind today. It's not groundbreaking or anything, but as I was preparing for this talk, the thought kind of came to me, and I was like, yeah, that's actually true. And I feel like, yes, tarot is a system that incorporates all of that and embodies all of that. And that is why it is so amazing, because it brings together so many different systems. And you can really look at it from any angle you want, psychologically, astrologically, alchemically,
Oh,
occultism,
amazing.
everything.
Which is your favorite arcana?
My favorite card.
This is not an interview, it's a chat, but I feel like
That's
making
a
a lot of
hard
questions.
question. Do you have a favorite card? You go first.
If I have a favorite card, probably death, which would, uh, connect totally to my zodiac sign and makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense for me. Scorpio guy. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, for me, it always changes because depending on what I feel I'm learning in life, I kind of resonate with different cards. I've
Okay.
always sort of liked the Chariot because it is my soul card. Though I've never seen a representation of the Chariot that I love, like image wise, I just feel like nobody really manages to capture it for some reason. And lately, I've been very much liking the Seven of Wands because it's
Well,
teaching me a lot about
mm,
being defensive or being aggressive. You know, as you said, you're a Scorpio, I'm an Aries. I can be very
we understand
protective.
each
I can be very protective of myself and of my energy. So it kind of, the Seven of Swords energy, sometimes I have too much of that. Nobody can get close to me and I need to defend my position. Um, Not in the way that it sounds right now. It's hard to explain, but it's a very deep psychological tendency that I have, that in order to not overgive and to dedicate myself too much to something, I have to sort of protect myself a little bit rigorously. And sometimes I don't know the limits of that. So the Seven of Wands is teaching me a lot right now, at least.
well, actually, it brings both sides, right? The the finding the balance and being in the middle of this crisis, being in the middle of the chaos, healthy, and keeping on with the projects, financial support, emotional, family, and stuff. And I watched your conversation with Kellyanne. That was
Mm,
quite interesting because you both spoke about relationship and you both spoke about the death card in a way,
yes.
transforming, changing, manifesting. And how do you see that applied now to your life and to the moment? You can be a little bit more, country speaking now, not only you personal, but
Yeah. The whole transformation aspect. Well, I feel like we are obviously in a huge phase of transformation collectively. And I feel like there's a lot of people holding on to the old ways, not just in a way where it's, the big companies, obviously, they want to continue to make money. They want people to come back to the office. They want the normal, the pre COVID normal back. So there's quite a lot of resistance to change and to that chaos. Which funnily, I think the Seven of Wands also kind of embodies that resistance to, chaos and to letting go of control and just letting things happen, which obviously just letting things happen wouldn't quite work in this situation either. So I'm not the wisest person who has the solutions, but I think if any tarot card would describe this moment, it would definitely be death at this point in this time, because we are really, I feel, in between. You know how people sometimes say in between years when you have the time between Christmas and New Year's? Um, and it feels like that. It feels like a liminal phase where here in Germany, everyone is just trying to get used to it and trying to, you know, understand in a way how things can continue to work here. And it's hard. It's hard to figure out because we are so set in our systems that I think we can't even fathom. And that is also a quality of death, I think. We cannot fathom what comes next. And that is what brings fear. And that applies to physical death as well as metaphorical death, that the inability to trust and to fathom what can come next, that is a huge issue here. And that is why I'm not one of those people who speaks about it, because I feel like, I think Elizabeth Gilbert was it who said that many people in this time, everyone imagines that now the world will become how they want it to be. So liberal people are like, oh, this world is going to get liberated now. Conservative people say, oh, the world will get stricter now. You know, and everyone sort of puts their own stamp on it and thinks they know what will happen. And I don't have that arrogance to say, I think this is where society is going to go, because I don't know if it's going to align with my values. I don't know if it's going to go in the direction that I think. So I try not to assume too much about that.
That was quite interesting because here in Brazil we have been passing through very difficult moments. In the north we have a lot of deaths, in the south less, but the south gets the, we are going to enter in the winter now. So we are a little bit, you know, facing fear every day.
Yeah.
I live on the mountains, so it's a little bit calm here. We don't have big chaos, but what I see is that people cannot, they don't have the ability to respect the others. They don't have empathy. The other day I was walking on the street wearing my mask, of course, and I looked down and then I saw a used mask on the floor in the urban space. And then I thought, man, this is not cool. This is not nice. People have information. Come on. We have many platforms. We have internet. We have TV, everything. And people know about it. Everybody knows about it. Everybody
Yeah.
knows how dangerous it can be. And people just disrespect, you know. They just put use the mask on the floor. The guy that will clean the city will get the mask, you know, maybe we'll get infected. And we are doing, you know, this big advertisement all about, wow, people from health area, wow, they are heroes. And I agree, totally agree, 100%. But we don't need heroes if people, you know, ordinary people just don't put the things in the trash correctly. And we are facing more of a moral, you know, war than health war, in my opinion, considering that we have to change our mindset, change our culture. People cannot react in rebellion, because this
Yeah.
is not a statement. This is not a moment for campaigns, you know, for parades on the street. This is a moment to, you know, go back home, stay inside, reflect, reevaluate your mind, your heart, your feelings, and don't do that. Just don't, you know, just don't put your used mask on the street, because this is not cool. That
Yeah.
makes me think about how do you deal with your patrons or the people that you work for as a tarot reader, in terms of the future. Do they ask things like, "Oh, am I gonna be healthy? Am I gonna
Mm.
lose my job?" How do you do that? How do you deal with that?
I feel like collectively, there's sort of two aspects to that. Collectively, I would say a lot of people, you know, because I'm not a fortune teller, people know not to ask me, will this happen? Will this not happen? So they know that.
Yeah.
So I don't get those questions. But a lot of people, what you've been saying, I can tell that they are doing a lot of shadow work and they are doing a lot of work around personal development to prepare for what comes next. because so many people are essentially soul searching now and trying to figure out where they want to take this, because either they maybe already lost their job, or they have to change their skill set, they have to change something about themselves. And this is the people that are relatively safe. They think about the future now. They think about how they can change themselves to change along with society. And then the other side of people, obviously, are the ones who are actually struggling, who have children who are forced to be at home and are depressed, or who have, lost their jobs and actually don't know how they will survive. And those people obviously ask different questions and ask more sort of self-help related questions of how can I deal with this situation right now. So you have people who have the mindset going towards the future, who are in a more safe space, like myself. I consider myself one of these people who
Good,
can now
good.
think about the future. And then there's people who really have to think about the now, and who have really been called to be in the present and figure out how they can deal with whatever is at hand. And to go sort of back to your other question, I want to also say that I think one of the issues in Germany that we have here is that we are not used to chaos at all anymore, because we haven't had a war in a long time. We don't really get natural disasters. We don't have tornadoes. We don't have volcanoes, obviously. We don't have floods very frequently. So people cannot understand the idea of having to change their behavior in a crisis situation, because crises don't happen here. We don't deal with physical crisis around us. And I think that's why people in the beginning, especially, also still now sort of, don't take it seriously enough, because they don't know what a crisis even is. They don't understand that anything could be this serious that they have to change their private behavior and change their freedom. And I think in different countries, it's obviously different. If you're used to natural disasters or crises like that, I think people have a different mindset. People know that compromise is necessary to make it through a crisis. And here, that mindset isn't so present in a lot of cases. So there's still people who go out normally, who meet people normally, because they don't want to change their behavior.
I believe that indirectly you just answered my situation in Brazil, because Brazil is very similar to Europe in some ways, and we are not used to having, these the same disasters that you mentioned, and maybe people are not also used to changing their mindset in order to bring peace. But I do believe that it's also connected to the individual journey of the person as a human being, as a humane, uh, part of the system, considering that everything that you do, will affect all the system. And that brings us back to all the systems that we spoke before, considering tarot and psychological, spiritual reevaluation of the self, and also the journey, considering that we are in the middle of machinery. It's a machine.
Yeah.
It's a machine that is working, and it changes, and we should all change it and readapt. Readapting for some people is very adventurous moment. They have to change everything and think about a beautiful future in another system. But for others, it's just chaotic. And when we say chaotic in this case, is chaotic is as bad, not as chaos magic, which is positive and negative. Yeah,
Yeah,
considering
yeah,
that. How do you deal with your own individual journey in the middle of all that, considering that we have 5 minutes?
yeah. Well, my own personal journey, as I said, I have a lot of time for self-development. I feel like I have a lot of time to journal, a lot of time to reflect on how I want my life to look and where I want to invest my energy. And I think that's really what this quarantine is giving me. It's giving me the time to think about where I really want to take my life and how I can imagine working in the future as well. Because honestly, I can't even imagine working in an office anymore at this point after being gone for so long. And it brings a lot of insights physically, but also mentally, because there's so much to, yeah, to think about there.
Very interesting. I think we have to be a little bit sensitive to deal with all that in this level of depth. It's not easy, to see your life as an outsider and also insider. You know what I mean? Like going deep in shadow and perceiving that you have, things to reevaluate,
Yeah,
cycles to end, new cycles to start, transform patterns of behavior. Um, the way that you see reality also is very interesting. I don't know about you, but for these last, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, the same hanged man card appearing, not only for me, but for
mm,
friends, all the time. And then I see, oh God, it's there. It shows that we have to see, reality with other eyes,
yeah.
with other points of view. Is it easy to change that, Anya?
Obviously not, no, but I do
Is it
love.
magical?
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes it's easier than we think, honestly. Sometimes it's easier
Okay.
to change our mind and our behavior than we think if we let go of resistance. Because in the beginning, when I was stuck at home, I had so much resistance. I thought, like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And the more resistance you have, and the more you think about what you'd like to do but cannot do, the harder it's going to be. But I think in the end, if you really dedicate yourself to seeing what reality is and what reality looks like for you in this moment and what the potential is, then many pathways open up. And I think that's sort of where it goes back to magic and it goes back to intention, because your intention should be to explore those paths that are open to you and not focus on the ones that are closed off due to whatever reasons around you, you know? So I think that's sort of where it ties back into magic and where you can really work on exploring new paths and exploring new things that are sort of forced upon you. But if you accept them, if you welcome them, it works out.
I think that's quite nice advice, considering that every individual has his own path and needs to learn
Mm,
his own way of seeing the world and how he wants to manifest his reality and change his things in life, and also professionally in this moment. And what we've been talking a lot about is how to change values, considering what you thought it was important before and what's really important now during this chaotic moment.
mm,
And values is all they are all about being empathic and thinking about each other and helping. And if you don't have salt, I can offer, as easy as it
yeah,
sounds. If you need salt, I offer. If you need somebody to
yeah,
speak with, I can be your ears. Very humane.
yeah. I think compassion is sort of compassion and cooperation are taking a new form, definitely.
Anya, my dear, I think our time has finished. Okay. Thank you so much for this moment. It was brand new for me, new experience, new moment. I have friends watching here, commenting. Very nice. Brazil and Germany. And I watch your videos all the time. They are very, very interesting. You speak in a very easy way to understand what is all those complex systems. Yeah, that's a compliment for you.
Thank
Okay.
you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think it was very, very inspiring. And I always like hearing your mindset because your mind works in interesting ways. And I feel like, yeah,
Okay.
it went really well.
Maybe we can do that again someday. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, people. See you. Have a good day. Yeah.
Thank
Bye
you. See
bye.
you. Bye.
Bye bye. See you.